Are you thinking about having breakouts as a part of your virtual event? Maybe you're utilizing the popular Zoom meeting function or utilizing breakouts of a different virtual platform. Well, I'm going to lay out the 3 things you need to take into consideration when you are planning your breakouts to set yourself up for success and allow your attendees to actually connect and enjoy their breakout experience. And thanks again for joining me for one of my videos. I do want to remind you to like, subscribe, turn on that little notification bell so you get notified every single Monday when I drop a new video. If you also want to head over, I have a free checklist on my website of my top 6 questions that I like to ask virtual event platforms. That is free at loganstrategygroup.com. Click the link below if you'd like to get a hold of that. But without further ado, let's get back into it. So I teased that this week's video is all about breakouts and how to optimize your breakouts so that your attendees actually enjoy them and accomplish whatever goals that you've set aside for your breakout sessions. Now, the 3 things I'm going to talk about are very similar to some of the other details that I talked about when hiring your virtual event producer, which I will link to above, but it really comes down to size, duration, and content. I'll say it again: size, duration, and content. Now, these are different than your size, duration, and content for your overall event. These are specific to your breakouts. So what do I mean by size? Here's where it's important to think about: how many people do you want in a breakout? It really varies per group based on what you're trying to do with your session. So for example, I did a speed mentoring event and it was all about group mentoring. So they wanted about 8 or 9 mentees and 1 mentor. So that's a breakout of about 10 people. Another one wanted to do more one-to-one connection and pairing people with an accountability partner. So you want to have 2 people in that room. The best way I have with thinking about breakouts is think about it visually in person. So sometimes virtually with all of our little squares, it can be hard to think about, but just think about it when you have 15 people physically in a circle together in a space. You're not going to hear from everybody. Not everyone's going to be heard, and you're not going to connect with all 15 people in your group. In a virtual world, it's even harder to do that because in person, you might be able to have a side conversation or a side comment to the person sitting next to you, but virtually, we're all captive and we're all holding the attention of the room. So whoever's speaking has all of the attention right then and there. So you really need to think about size and be intentional with how many people that you want in your room. If you're using Zoom meeting, this is very easy to control. You can either set up based on how many rooms you want or how many people in the room. You can make it automatic or manual, depending if you want it to be random or planned, but really think about the size. Next would be duration. So thinking about how long are people in their breakout room. And this is something you want to be intentional with because you want to know to set expectations with them before they go into their breakouts, or broadcast a message, or just let everyone know, hey, you have 10 minutes in this room before we rotate. Back to my speed mentoring example, we had broadcast messages that went out, and we actually, at this website we used, had a function where it had a timer. This was on remo.com. I'll link to that one below. But on Remo, where it counted down how much time was available. So everyone, the mentees, all the mentors, everyone in the breakout rooms knew how much time was left. But the worst thing you can do is leave people in a room too long. This is both a duration factor, but it also relies on content because you want to make sure you gave them enough things to talk about in those breakouts so that they don't feel like there's awkward silence. Because most of these virtual event platforms like Zoom are not necessarily enabled for if the conversation stales, that you can all leave and do something else. You're kind of captive with your breakout room. And so you want to be very intentional with how much time you're giving people. As a virtual event producer, my rule of thumb is you want to leave people wanting more. You don't want them to feel frustrated that they didn't get to say anything, but you want to leave them wanting more or giving them an option to connect at another time. So think about your duration of your breakouts. Could be 3 minutes, they could be 5 minutes, they could be 10, they could be 15. But if you have people in breakouts for 25, 30 minutes, you better have a lot of content and maybe even a facilitator in that room to make sure that it doesn't go stale. And my last one is content. I teased a little bit when I was talking about duration, but with content, making sure you have enough things for them to talk about that fits your time. So those two are really kind of hand in hand, duration and content, because you don't want to give people too much content and then not enough time, but you don't want to give them too much time and not enough content. And so it's very crucial that you kind of set expectations with your attendees either before they go in the breakouts or in an email ahead of time if it's only a breakout session, but giving them discussion questions, giving them something to spark a conversation. I think breakout rooms, I'll use Zoom meeting for an example. Breakout rooms in Zoom can feel like an extrovert's favorite thing ever and an introvert's worst nightmare. When actually what Zoom is great, it does equal the playing field where it allows extroverts to say something in the chat and introverts can think a little longer and then say something in the chat. But the hard part with Zoom, it's the devil in the details, is it is completely random. And so if you're someone who struggles with networking in person, you might also think you're going to struggle virtually, and some of the things are true. You need to be able to put yourself out there and try to strike up conversation, but this isn't totally on you as the attendee. The organizer, the event host, should really be setting you up for success with a discussion question or a direction for you to take that breakout. And if you're an event host and you think you can just put people in virtual rooms and expect the conversation to flow naturally, well, I would challenge you to think about that and really have some questions prepared, knowing full well that those are more talkative and extroverted will probably completely disregard your questions and just go on and have their own discussion. But those that are having trouble getting started will really appreciate having some guidance in their conversation and just something to get them to gain some momentum, because it is very weird to just be thrown in a virtual room with people that you've never met before, or maybe you kind of know, but you're not sure what to do. And having some form of a question or guidance in what they should be discussing will help just break that virtual ice. So again, my 3 tips for planning a successful breakout session are all about size, duration, and content. I'm also going to link to a lovely article that my friend Jen Mueller wrote about having effective breakouts, and you better read it because she honestly set me up for my favorite breakout that I've ever been a part of. I was an attendee at an event where she put us together as a bunch of 10 people who didn't know each other, but she teased it perfectly in a pre-event email that got us all interested in wondering who is that person she was talking about who's really good at business coaching? Who is that person who has this kind of skill? It was amazing. And that's all I have for you folks. My name's Logan Clements, freelance event producer, and this has been another installment of my favorite tips and tricks about event production, strategy, and running your own business. I'll talk to you guys again next week. Bye.